One team in the AFC North completely blew the 2025 NFL Draft. Stay tuned to find out which failed to meet expectations. Moving on to the AFC North. Ryan, let's start with the Baltimore Ravens. How would you grade the Ravens 2025 class?
It's an A, Joe, and I feel like this is a rinse and repeat type of situation. I think that we can do this almost every single year and find the value Baltimore takes. Malaki Starks at the top at pick number 27. They got Mike Green at 59, the pass rusher out of Marshall, who was projected by some to be a first-round caliber player. You move down the board, and I even like late day 3 values like an Aeneas Peebles, the talented interior pass rusher out of Virginia Tech that was formerly of Duke. So this is a team, a lot of selections, several value plays. Top of the draft was fantastic. Baltimore Ravens, A grade for me.
I'm going to go B+. I'm not going to go all the way on the A because I want to be moderately selective. The Starks pick is going to be one that we talk about in 5 years. And I said this the whole pre-draft, that Starks is going to slide, and it was going to be a pick that we're going to be saying, like, man, how did he make it that far? Not only does that come to fruition, but he also lands in the best circumstance for him to shine and to maybe even be a Defensive Rookie of the Year candidate. Mike Green fell for the character concerns, which we've spent plenty of time talking about on this channel. They're able to take advantage of that. They can take a swing on day 2 with an already good defense that if something goes wrong, something bad happens, they can just move on. They're not a team that's like really desperate for a pass rush like some of these other teams that might have been put into a corner if things went awry with Mike Green. The rest of the class, like I like some of the picks. Bilal Coney, we've talked about as an underrated day 3 option. DeJounte Wester has some juice with a very weak receiver class. And I also like Peebles, who for his body type is unique enough to play amongst the current group of defensive tackles to provide an impact as a rotational player. So overall, pretty quality draft. Let's move on to the Pittsburgh Steelers, who are a bit of a head scratcher. How would you grade the Pittsburgh Steelers draft class?
So after the first 2 picks of Derrick Harmon and Caleb Johnson, obviously the running back out of Iowa, and Derrick Harmon, the talented interior defensive lineman out of Oregon, formerly Michigan State, I would have said that this was a B+ start, Joe, but it was a not good finish, right? So this ended up for me a B- draft. I like the top 2 selections. After that, though, you had 4 other picks that I just think were, like, for me, the Will Howard pick in the 6th round, the quarterback, is a solid pick. The other 3 picks, I don't get it, right? Like, I could take it or leave it in those spots, especially in that value range. So I give it a B- off to a strong start, but a less than ideal finish.
I'm going to go with a B here just because that they addressed... Actually, no, I'm taking that back. I'm going to go with a B-. I just talked myself out of it as I was about to lead in with my thoughts here. Derrick Harmon is exactly what you needed at defensive tackle. He could not have been a better fit for his side and also for the Steelers side because it allows you to figure out how you're going to deploy everybody as soon as Cam Hayward ends up retiring. The long athletic body type that he presents is extremely useful. You get that with Yahya Black, but he is a very inconsistent player. He's all over the place. We saw that at the Senior Bowl, that he was not very good at the Senior Bowl. This feels like a swing on just physical tools and how big he is. Maybe they get something out of him. I'm a little bit doubtful. Caleb Johnson, type of player for them in the 2nd round that goes on to become an 1,000-yard plus rusher, and I think that he could. He's super patient, really, really patient, taller running back prospect that is going to thrive with the way that they run the football with an improved offensive line that has gotten better year over year. But you're right. The rest of this class is just, it's a lot of meh, and I don't know what the heck they're doing at quarterback. I think that depending on who they go after, even if it's Aaron Rodgers or Kirk Cousins, I still question if this roster offensively is truly, truly ready to set one of those guys up to succeed, to get past the divisional round, the wild card round, like they've struggled in the past few years. Let's head on over to our next team, talking about the Cincinnati Bengals, who needed to go all in on defense. Ryan, how would you grade the Bengals draft class?
It's a C+ for me, and it's a C+ because, I mean, first and foremost, the good parts. I don't mind taking the Shemar Stewart, the edge out of Texas A&M. I don't mind taking the gamble at 17. I think it's a fine, appropriate spot for a guy that has so many tools and so much upside. Demetrius Knight in the 2nd round, the linebacker out of South Carolina, is a guy that I love a ton. But you know what the issue was? It's twofold for me, Joe. One, You had massive needs in the secondary, both at corner and at safety. Both classes were good classes. I mean, I would argue that the corner class was very good in the 2025 class, and they did not attack that spot. They also didn't go interior defensive lineman in a historically deep interior defensive lineman class. So I think you missed out on a couple of the needs to prioritize double dipping at linebacker early on day 3. I don't mind Barrett Carter, the early 4th round gamble. I mind that you took 2 linebackers in the first 4 rounds when you have needs at interior defensive line, corner, and safety. I don't understand the ideology about this. It's not necessarily a couple of the players. I do like a couple of the players that they selected, but I think that this is a very muddled, just kind of understanding of how to build a roster. So I gave it a C+. It just didn't make a ton of sense to me.
I feel a C+ is a great grade for this because of like what they needed right now. They needed guys that can step in and impact, and you also needed to come out of this with a new starting defensive tackle. You needed to come out with a starting safety. They didn't accomplish any of those things. I would have felt comfortable with, in the 5th round, them taking Jalen Rivers from Miami, who I was higher on than you were. It was good value for where he was taken. He has a really nice base in pass protection. He could have started at guard for you, and you could have seen what you could have gotten out of him. And if he wasn't great, moved on. But I think he's like stout enough to at least have contributed. Dylan Fairchild, to me, and I've seen a lot of Bengals creators agreeing with this, that was not a great pick. It was an overdraft. You didn't need to take 2 interior offensive linemen when the issue was your defense giving up 1 million points. Demetrius Knight is going to be a great middle linebacker for you, but I don't know where Barrett Carter truly steps in. And most importantly, Shemar Stewart, great athlete, could end up being a great pick, but I almost question if the Bengals were the best fit for him because they needed a guy that could contribute now. And Shemar Stewart is not a fully baked prospect that needs to improve. So there's a shot that we're talking about the Bengals defense stinking again this upcoming season. Let's talk about the Browns to finish up. They were controversial for a million different reasons. What would you grade their draft?
I ended up sticking with a C+ as well. So back-to-back C+ for me on this one. I love Mason Graham at 5, and you traded back and you got capital there. And there were a couple other spots that I was like, okay, I understand that value. Like I was even okay with Carson Schlesinger at number 33 overall. It was a touch high maybe for some. I was okay with it from an ideological perspective, but I hated the double dip of running back. I hated it. Like Quinshawn and Dylan Sampson technically fit well together because they're different backs, Joe, but that was like my all overrated running back team in this class. Like I did not like either one of those for the value that they brought. And then ultimately, hey, if Shedeur ends up being a starting quarterback in the NFL for you, Joe, then this class looks a whole lot better, and you got him in the 5th round. But there is a world where you may have drafted a quarterback in the 3rd round that doesn't make your team in 2025. There is a world that happens. So I just thought from a just general understanding of how to build a roster that this draft was incredibly flawed to me. Did not love the double dip of running back in this particular fashion. The quarterback carousel is going to determine how good this class is, but I think that this one could end up being a very flawed understanding of how to build a quarterback room as well.
This is a C draft for me. There's just a lot of stupid decision making here. I think that it all starts with the fact that moving back to get capital for Travis Hunter is fine, but I'm really worried about how we're going to look back on that in history. Because even if Mason Graham goes on to be a great player, which he will, and even if that pick that they got from the Jaguars goes on to be a quality starter for your team, which they can probably get. Now, the Browns tend to swing and miss a lot, so we can't exactly really commit to that. If Travis Hunter goes on to be prolific, the Browns will forever be known, as they're always known, as the team that made the mistake of passing up on the chance to have a prolific player like Travis Hunter. I just worry that for the legacy of the game, that talking point could really alter how we talk about this draft class. And it's going to overshadow Mason Graham, who's a great football player. I think Schlesinger, where they took him, fine player. I think Quinshawn Judkins, I disagree with you slightly. I think for the way that they like to run the ball and be hard-nosed, I think that he can be productive within the scheme. I think that they can give him a ton of touches and allow for him to be a 1,000-yard back in the next couple of years. But the double dip at quarterback was incredibly dumb. And both these guys are not going to stay on the roster. Lastly, I hated the Harold Fannin pick. I'm not a Harold Fannin fan. I think that already having David Njoku and him being as good as he is and how good he's gotten over the past few years, and he's finally playing to his potential, You're bringing in another guy and you wasted an early third on him when you didn't address.
They wanted a flex. They wanted a flex tight end to go along with him.
I just think that with so many other positions in this draft class, we talked about the talent at edge. We've talked about the ability for them in the third round to maybe look for another offensive lineman, and they didn't do any of that. So I'm giving them.
They also didn't draft a wide receiver too, to kind of continue your point. Yeah,
they didn't draft a receiver either, and I think that would have been more valuable than Harold Finn. And folks, comment below what you think of our grades here on these draft classes. Hit that like button and subscribe. We'll talk to you later.